I never grew up with educators that look like myself. So, bro,
100.
I feel like honestly, like we are that new wave that make being wise, being smart, being educated cool, right?
Absolutely.
Wisdom is a powerful tool, but oftentimes we might neglect it because of who it's coming from. You feel me? But if we can chop it up with a young buck and really implant a seed, man, like it's more than just education at that point. You know what I'm saying?
What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in areas that they're most passionate about. What's going on, my brother Marcus, man? Check in with us. Let us know how you doing.
What's going on, boss man? Happy to be here with a fresh extended weekend, man. Fresh off of Labor Day. Had some
Sure.
time to just charge up and refresh real quick, man. So feeling good, ready to get to it, man. We have an awesome conversation today. I'm excited to dive into. But before we do that, man, what about you, good brother? How you feeling today?
Man, I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet, man. I live an adventurous life, man. So I have a little bit of a lot going on. Me and Chuck, man, we got a couple hits on the flip. So I'm excited to get that process completed, and get that project sold. And then separately, man, like I got my rental car business, man. It's been booming. I'm in the process of car shopping. So excited to add 3 more cars to the fleet. But
Come
other
on.
than that, man, I'm blessed. Like you said, had an extended weekend, so I got to chill with my lady. But other than that, man, everything is good.
That's huge, bro. That's what I'm talking about, man. I know coming off of that, man. Just recently, we had the book bag drive back home, man. Had a chance to empower the community. I know it was something that we kind of talked over just briefly last time, man. But just got a recap video, man. I feel like it's so much sweeter seeing it a second time, man. That impact all over again. So definitely feeling good. Prepping for this weekend. We have our retreat for the college mentors. So getting ready to pour into them. And that's an awesome segue because what we're gonna talk about today is gonna be the actual talking point that I'm gonna have with them as we wrap up with a keynote session, man. So again, today, family, we're gonna have a conversation about not always leaning on the finesse, right? And if you're anything like myself and James, we depended upon it a lot to maneuver the different elements that came into play. But as we've grown, we've matured, we realized you can't always lean on the finesse, right? And another way of wording the finesse is the path of least resistance. Um, as a young black man, I think oftentimes from a culture standpoint, it's cool. That's what's accepted. That's what's popping, right? But we're gonna dive into it a little bit more and just talk about some key examples of when we did lean on the finesse and when it backfired, and what we're doing now personally to overcome that mentality and to really push through and evolve, right? So James, man, let's start off, man. I really want to just ask you some opening questions and learn a little bit more about your story, right? So just straightforward, man. Tell me about a time where you really found yourself leaning on the finesse.
Man, that's as always, Marcus, man, you ask some super dope questions. But man, the first thing that comes to mind is back when I was in college. And we kind of talked about this offline where I, had this major assignment due, and I chose to pretty much copy someone else's work, which was, some stuff I Googled to pretty much fill in some of the blanks for this paper that I was writing. Because, man, when I was in college, man, I was the Jamaican. I was working a desk attendant job. I was working in a cafe, man. I was reffing in the mural games. So I really didn't have a lot of time to complete the assignment, you know what I mean? Because I was paying for my own tuition. But I went ahead and I, like I said, copied someone else's work, and it ended up biting me in my butt because the teacher ran it through this software, and she saw that I plagiarized the paper. But she called me to her office after class, and we talked about it. And the dope part about it was she shared a similar story as myself, where she had to fund her own college education, and so she didn't fail me for the class, but she gave me a 0 on the assignment. But man, I tried to finesse the system, man, and do something that I shouldn't have. And it bit me in the butt, but not as bad as it could have been. What about you, Marcus?
And that was a blessing because the average teacher would have thrown you to the woods, man. But myself, I'm glad you started off with school. I think that's where finessing starts, right? For myself, at least, I remember there was a couple of times where it was notes that got sent home to my dupes. I'm ripping it out my planner. The teacher seeing it the next day, circling where it was. I'm ripping out that. Yo, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm not ever gonna get in trouble. So a parent conference came into play, and they're like, "Yeah, what about this, Miss Jenkins?" She like, "I don't know what you're talking about, right?" Luckily, or not luckily, but as the Rico Suave finesse element, man, I was signing my mama's name in elementary school. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so my teacher pulling out the notes, like, you didn't sign this? They just looking at me. I'm just quiet in the corner, right? But
Yeah.
so there was different elements that came into play like that. But another specific situation, and again, what I really want to get out of this conversation is why leaning on the finesse is not always positive. So I really want to highlight that.
For
So in
sure.
this specific situation, and I keyboarding class, and again, this takes me back to middle school. I know we all had that one teacher we just weren't fond of. We just didn't get it. We just grinded each other's gear, and I don't know why. I can't remember her name, but we used to call her like a witch because she really looked like a witch. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
distinctively, right? In this class, there was a keyboarding class. So with that being said, you had to take a test, and obviously, your hands had to be in a proper typing position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a sheet of paper that went over your hand, so you had to actually do it proper, right? She was walking around the room. At that point in time, as soon as she hit that corner, I flipped up the sheet and I went back to pecking. I'm
Yeah.
a I'm a proficient pecker, is what I would like to say. But at that point in time, man, this was an awesome opportunity for me to learn, right? Even being in the corporate world now, I'm on a computer 100% of the time I'm at work, and I still lean on the peck because I chose to finesse this specific situation. Now that I passed with flying colors, but I cheated myself out of the opportunity to learn how to do this, and it was a setting strictly dedicated to teaching me this.
Yeah.
So again, that was one time that I can really just recall where I was finessing and ultimately I paid the price long term. Now, again, could I sit down and learn how to properly type? 100%. But with
Yeah.
my schedule and my lifestyle and things, there's not a setting that's 100% conducive to it. I took a
Yeah.
class dedicated to it, and I cheated myself out of that opportunity. So that's definitely one of my most memorable finessing sessions in which I should not have.
Yeah. Now that story, it reminds me of this Inky Johnson quote where it goes, rarely do we ever rise to the occasion, but we typically revert back to our training or our habits. So, like you said, because you were able to finesse through the class, like, but it wasn't like it didn't really necessarily help you the way that it should have, because now you still go to work and you called it pecking, but it's just like yeah, but it's like, man, you literally had an opportunity to specifically learn how to type, and that would have translated to shoot not only a job but anything else that you were doing. But you also made me kind of think about another college experience I had with the honor code. So basically what the honor code is that whenever we were taking an exam, the professor would literally, pack up their stuff and leave until the exam, like literally until the last student was done with their exam. And with the honor code, you basically just write out, the honor code at the end of your test or your paper or what have you. And, pretty much saying like, hey, I'm going to respect this honor code. The irony is that I don't even recall what the honor code was, but basically, man, the teacher would leave out. And I remember specifically in Spanish, the teacher would give us our exam, and then I would kind of like use my phone to Google what the different words were. And it's interesting now, like I do recall some of the Spanish words, because to me, I'm like, man, I'm not trying to be fluent in Spanish. But at the same time, I'm in conversations, or I overhear conversations with some of my friends that speak Spanish are having, and I'm like, I wonder what he's talking about. Like I went to a Spanish restaurant, and one of my homie's girlfriend, like she was ordering our food for us, and I'm just like, dang, like the only word that I understood was table, which was mesa. So just like you, man, like it's not extremely translatable, but I completely understand, like where it's like you had an opportunity to truly learn this thing, but you wanted to take the finesse or the road of least resistance, and it kind of backfired on you. Let's transition a little bit, and let's talk about sports. um as a former college athlete, I'm pretty sure you can understand that. Well, let me ask it like this: which one do you think is more difficult, eating healthy or working out?
Mm. On a personal note, I would say eating healthy.
Yeah, yeah,
Working out is routine. It's consistent. It's something that you know what I'm saying, you've adapted to and you're used to. Especially if you make it to college as a college athlete, training and preparation, it goes hand in hand, right? So for myself, the training, the working out, things of that nature, that was just common. That was a habit, routine, essentially. But eating out is a whole nother story, man. And
yeah.
I'm a fat kid, and I've always been a fat kid when it comes to eating, man. I'm a passionate food junkie, right? And
Yeah.
even when it comes to that, like I have my my fiance and a whole lot of other individuals tell me I eat like a pregnant woman, is what I was told, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but y'all gonna get to know me a bit more, right? My
Yeah.
passion, my passion when it comes to eating, I have two favorite things that I love to put on the line, even when it comes to like ramen noodles,
Yeah.
hot sauce and syrup. That's
Oh
the
my
combo.
God.
That's the combo. The
Wait a minute. So hot sauce and syrup together?
together, the combination,
Oh
man, the
wow.
sweet and the spicy component. So again, that's something I've always dabbled with and I love with a passion. But
Yeah.
oftentimes if it goes in hot, it comes out. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's certain things that come into play. But again, and oftentimes I was eating past 12 o'clock. I was doing these different things. So for myself personally, I could just say eating. All right. What about yourself?
No, I agree. And I didn't realize this until recently that getting healthy or getting in shape is literally 25% exercise and about 75% nutrition and eating right. Cause I too was always the fat kid, like, cause I had this weird relationship with sweets. Like I'm talking about, bro, cookies, cakes, candy, like it's me. Like it don't matter what it is, what type of sweet it is, I'm eating it. Especially chocolate, man. Like I love chocolate. And so I remember like, in college, bro, I thought I was fat, but like I was like skinny fat. You know what I mean? Like I could go to the gym, I could work out like crazy, but I could never lose my stomach for some reason, no matter how many crunches, no matter how many core exercises, like I could never lose my stomach. And I remember being like at my best weight right before the pandemic. And that had came after a month where I decided like I'm not gonna eat any meat. I'm just gonna eat all live foods. I cut out sweets is what bro I'm talking about. That was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But I cut out all sweets. And man, like I lost about 15 pounds, but like I gained so much muscle. And but the whole point of that was just understanding like there was no easy way to do that, bro. Like I was eating like the same thing every day, like rice bowls and whatnot. But for me, the hardest thing is eating healthy. And the reason that I bring that up in this conversation is that as athletes or as fitness connoisseurs or what have you, we believe that we can eat what we want as long as we put that work in the gym. But you got to put just as much work in the kitchen as you do in the gym if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. I was just having a conversation with a couple of the guys earlier, and I was telling them like, as kids, we eat based off how we feel. And I think you could kind of agree with this with the hot sauce and the syrup. Like you would have like you say, oh, I have a craving for this food, but what you're really saying is I feel like eating this food, like not thinking what that food or the effect of that food, what it'll have on you. And so I was telling my boy Chuck earlier, like, I haven't been eating meat the last month and up until now. And I was telling him like, I'm trying to incorporate foods for what they'll do to me, the energy that they'll give me, and the other benefits that they'll give me. So, I told him that this morning. He was like, "You don't understand how much I needed that, bro, because like I do be dogging some whatever. I forget the food that he said, but you can't escape the ground when it comes to getting healthy, bro."
Let me. So I'm glad you said that. So I want to almost segue to an extent, man. I
Yeah,
want to ask you: what is the difference between leveraging your resources and finessing?
man, that's a dope question, man. The difference between leveraging your resources and finessing is like, man, you could even think into the extent of getting in shape. Like I remember right after one of my homies' wedding, man, I was feeling kind of out of shape because when I went to get um measured for my tux, man, I was one size, but when it actually came to putting that tux on, it was a little tight. Especially, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially the little vest, man. I'm glad that we had the jackets because it covered up how the vest was fitting. But instead of just trying to finesse and go on some like fad diet or something of that nature, I hit up one of my bros that I knew was in the gym consistently. And I'm like, hey, look, man, like I'm trying to get back in the gym, man. Could you train me a little bit? And I'm willing to pay you. Of course, since he was my homie, he was like, man, I got you. So, man, he literally set me up with some plans to get me back in shape. But with almost anything, like even when I was talking about being in college and kind of finessing and plagiarizing that paper, had I really just reached out to the professor and said, hey, can I have an extension? Because, I'm going through these different things. Because again, I told you, she shared a similar upbringing where she had to pay for her own tuition. So I think that knowing what I know now, I think she would have just gave me the extension versus me trying to plagiarize something to turn it in on time. So just understanding that I just watched this interview with Kyrie. He was saying like superheroes need help too. Like understanding that you don't have to do everything yourself. You have people around you that are willing to help you as long as you're willing to ask for help. What about you? What you think?
That's good. I like what you said, and I'm gonna kind of roll off that. And again, this is my personal perspective. I think it's two components that come in play.
Mm-hmm.
One is effort, and the second is consciousness. Right.
For sure.
if whenever you're deciding whatever ultimate decision you're gonna make, if there's a conscious effort where something inside says some you ain't going the right way about this, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you're finessing, right? Whenever you're finessing a test, something in the midst is like, damn, if I get caught, right? There's always that back of the mind, that
Yeah.
element on your shoulder to say, yo, be careful, be cautious, right? So I would say if that element comes into play, that's how you know it's finessing. And the second is effort. Anything where you're actually having to make an effort for and actually become uncomfortable in the midst of it, I think that's where it strays away from finessing. Finessing again is taking the path of least resistance. You don't Finessing usually comes natural and doesn't really take a lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
Reaching out for help, and your point, asking the teacher, there is effort applied there, right?
Yeah.
That's not finessing. You copying a paper word for word, there was no effort. You know
No
what I'm
effort
saying?
in that.
So
No effort.
again,
Yeah.
when effort and that consciousness level comes into play, that's when you know you're straying away from finessing. At least myself personally.
Yo, I love that because it also reminds me of literally a conversation I was having the other day with somebody, and they were talking about being kind of stuck in your ways, quote unquote, or someone saying like, man, this is just me, like deal with it. And I'm like, I don't believe that to be true. I think that everybody has the capacity to change. It just boils down to your intent and your desire. Like, how much do you really want to change? One of the mentors, Bob Proctor, there's a quote that says, change is inevitable, but personal growth is a choice. So I believe that, just like you said, like, man, there has to be this conscious understanding that something that I'm doing isn't right. Or like you feel it in yourself where it's like, man, if I get caught, like I could fail this class. But it's like the desire to be like, you know what? I'm not going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and just say, I'm going to just, whether I get the F or I get the C or the D or whatever, I'm going to just take it on the chin because that's what I deserve because I didn't put in the proper work beforehand instead of trying to take the easy road out like myself and plagiarize a paper. Like that was just super dumb looking back at it. Like,
And so one thing we always talk about is reading, right? I
yeah,
don't know if y'all can see it, right? The honest truth about dishonesty. Dishonesty. This is a book that I recently started diving into, man, and it talks about finessing, and I didn't realize it because it doesn't say finessing in layman terms, but it breaks down and it talks about anytime you make a decision, you do a natural cost analysis, right?
mm,
If I get caught, what's gonna happen? What is the reward if I don't get caught, right? And then what is the moral and ethical like code associated with it? And those are the natural things we unconsciously think of before making a decision. And it really just broke it down on a deeper level where, man, I really analyzed my thought process and my movements a whole lot more. And it even just caused me to bring and associate values with natural things I see every day. For instance, we talked last week, right? And I saw a rainbow. A rainbow to me now represents grind. Because again, what's at the end of the rainbow, right? The goal, which is the goal, the objective everybody's working towards. But the rainbow to me represents the grind to get there, right? What is the process associated with it? So now, whenever I see a rainbow, man, I'm thinking about actually getting a rainbow tatted, bro. Like it's a little bit deeper than me, man. And
yeah.
when I was sitting there looking at it, man, a Nipsey Hustle song was playing, and I thought about the flags. The flags and the rainbow kind of go hand in hand as far as the
Yeah.
race process.
Mm-hmm.
So for me now going forward, man, I'm not really in love with the goal, bro. And even like with the mentors that I'm speaking with, and even like my peers, man, the big focus is falling in love with the grind, bro.
Yeah.
Waking up happy to grind and realize that you're just taking one step further and realizing that it's a consistent process each and every day. And then again, man, finesse, finesse goes hand in hand with being immature in my eyes, just to be very transparent with you.
Yeah.
When I was finessing, when I was doing what I was doing with women, with school, with great, all that, man, I realized I always had the opportunity and ability to do better. But it was easier. There's less energy associated with it, man. But as you know, and I know, as a man in today's society, there is no such thing as shortcuts. And the shortcuts usually end up with a negative outcome on the end result, man. And even just takes me back to being online. When we're online, bro, we couldn't walk in grass. And the reason being is because it teaches you no shortcuts in life. There's pavement, there's a sidewalk for a reason. Use it, leverage it, right? But oftentimes when you're not in a situation where you have to, that's when it's easy to lean on the finesse, man. So yes, a lot that comes with it.
Nah, man, that just reminds me of that story, Acre of Diamonds, where there was this African farmer and he ended up basically hearing about people like finding diamonds in the countryside. And he decided like, hey, look, I'm gonna sell my farm and I want to go out and find these diamonds, because it appeared that finding diamonds was easier than looking at what he had in front of him. And so he searched and searched and searched for these diamonds, but they eluded him. And so much so that he ended up killing himself, because what he thought was the path of, well, the path that led him to success, he ended up killing himself because he didn't find the diamonds. And literally the guy that purchased his farm ended up seeing a rock in the creek. And he had someone examine the rock. He was like, man, like, this is a diamond. And he was like, oh, really? He was, I found about 3 or 4 of these down the way on on the bed of the creek. And because of that, he ended up having one of the most famous diamond mines in the state of Africa, or in the continent of Africa, excuse me. So the whole point of that is similar to what you're saying, man. Like, you can't escape the grind. Like, if the guy would have just sat and took the time to learn what a diamond looked like in his rough state, he would have never felt the need to leave and go find diamonds in the countryside, because he was literally sitting on top of thousands and thousands of diamonds right where he was at.
Mm, 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 mm. Man, yo, you took me back. You took me back with that one, man. Again, every time I think about Finesse and the actual genuine process, it takes me back just to being online. To your point, he gave up when it was so close, right? That makes me think about a poem, "Don't Quit." Are you familiar with "Don't Quit"?
Now, who is it by?
It's by Edgar Allan Guest, right? So I'm looking at it right now, man. But again, this was something that was very monumental to me online. I'm gonna just read you the first stanza. The first stanza kind of sets the tone, right? It goes, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to weep but you have to sigh, when cares press you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. And essentially, man, all it's really talking about is realizing that it's a parallel of life. Everything in life is not going to come easy, and anything that comes easy oftentimes doesn't have a high price associated with it, or value associated with it. So every time I think about anything that I value, man, like it really just takes me back to family, my loved ones, my child, right? I would give anything in the world for my loved ones. So with that being said, I place a high value on it. So being that you place a high value, how does that translate to your work ethic associated with it, right? And I'm real big on Gary Vee. Gary Vee always talks about what really he talks about what really motivates him, man. He talks about how he basically creates scenarios in his head, right? He pictures his loved one on their deathbed, or pictures something that's very tragic, has a negative element associated with it, and that motivates him because your emotions are associated with it. Now you're gonna grind that much harder, right? Every time I think about my why, I look at my phone and my screensaver is my daughter, right? That's what's always gonna motivate me and keep me going. And again, now that I am grown and I have that responsibility and that dependent variable that leans on me, I know the path of least resistance is not an option anymore. I'm taking the head on with a smile on, because I know it's gonna pay. I'm gonna pay it forward to the next generation, man. And that's what really keeps me going. So let me ask you, when things get rough, you know what I'm saying? And again, when those negative elements come in play and it's easy to finesse, what are you doing? What are you leaning on to motivate yourself?
Man, I just, first and foremost, I want to say, like, when it comes to children, I don't have any yet, but like they're sponges. So like they mimic the behavior that they see their parents, do. And so it's like, I think it's very important as a parent to model the proper behavior that they want their kids to pick up. So I think, man, that's super dope that you're going about it the way that you are. But for me, I just kind of think back to that Inky Johnson quote where it says, like, we rarely rise to the occasion. We typically revert back to our training or our habits, because, man, like, you can finesse for sure, but that finesse is not going to get you where you want to go. It's the habits that you build daily that are going to get you where you really want to go. Similar to falling in love with the journey versus the destination, because if you're solely looking for how to get to the destination, you'll end up jumping off a cliff, going to sell your farm so that you can go search for diamonds when you got diamonds right in front of you. Like, so for me, man, I just try to stay grounded in my approach, no matter what it is. If I'm trying to figure out a way to scale my business, if I'm trying to figure out a way to motivate youth, even with my relationship, like, it's so easy for you in a relationship to get upset with your significant other and just say, forget it, you know what, and just stop talking, right? Instead of looking at, okay, what is the issue? Like, how could we get past this? Like, what are your views on this? What are my views on this? And something that I've recently learned is that, like, or not even that I recently learned, is something that I recently started to employ, is we can disagree. That doesn't mean I hate you. You know what I mean? But let's come to an understanding where it's like, you feel that way, I feel this way, but let's find a way to move forward. And I think that, man, with a lot of folks, like they'll, choose that path of least resistance just because it's easier. But in the end, it's going to always come back to bite you in the butt, because nothing in this world that's worth having is easy. And you got to fight for everything that you want. And no matter what that fight looks like. What about you? I mean, you kind of spoke about it as far as like wanting to essentially be the type of guy that your daughter can be proud of. But outside of that, are there any other things that you're doing to make sure that you're not taking shortcuts or anything of that nature?
Bro, my conscience is loud. My conscience is loud. Like, bro, I throw a piece of paper away and hit the trash can and fob, like, you missed it. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, my conscience is loud. And with that being said, in the early stages, I was just good at shutting it up. I was just good at not listening to it, paying attention.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a point in my life where I know that God is using me and shaping me. And even when I pray, man, I pray that he wraps his arms around me and allow myself to be a vessel of his work, right?
Yep.
And what you ask for, you gonna get. So
for sure.
I'm telling you, man. And even like the different things in which I've acquired now, like the house, right? I know I can't finesse no mortgage. That's my daughter's dependent upon that. You know what I'm saying? And to see God molding me and morphing me into the man that I desire to be and that I asked for, you just gotta buckle down now, man. And again, I really just reflect on my past, man. I had a lot of fun. I made a lot of mistakes. I hit my head, and now it's all about paying it forward. And even that just brings me back to our first original point, right? We talked about being a student athlete. Being a student athlete teaches you a lot of discipline, right? And obviously, a lot of people finesse and maneuver around it. But even when I'm talking to the kids, right? All them say they want to be in the NBA and the NFL, things of that nature. I'm asking you, like, but how are you outworking those individuals who are grinding right now while you're talking about what you want to do? And that's what it really boils down to. Because I know in the early stages for myself, I knew I was that guy. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't really humble about it in all transparency. But when I tore my ACL because I didn't stretch, when I dislocated my knee because I didn't stretch, because I didn't do things right, when I tore my quad because I didn't stretch, it taught me and it humbled the heck out of me. And now I realized that even though I thought, the NFL or some type of football career was the route in which I need to go, different things transpired in my life for a reason. And I'm content with where I am today, but I'm still working on my evolution each and every day. And again, it's just being a testimony to the next, but holding yourself accountable too, man. And to your perspective, man, I know you always talking about the gang, the guys, right? Having that circle around me, right? I'm pointing at them. I'm holding them accountable. They're holding me accountable. So I think it really boils down to that circle, that conscious, and then realizing that you're not just moving for you anymore. You got God, you got family, you got these different elements, and really just the process of evolution that comes with it.
No, for sure, man. When you were talking about, the younger guys that you mentor that are trying to get to the NFL, the NBA, like I think about how folks have kind of started to use the mentality, the Mamba mentality. Like I think people play it out a little too much, because if you really were about the Mamba mentality, it's really about getting better every day. What can you do every day to help sharpen your sword or sharpen your iron to get closer to the goal? And like Kobe Bryant was so cerebral with it, bro. Like this man literally said that I would get up at 4 a.m., go to the gym, get done with the gym around, 6 o'clock, go to shoot around or practice, go back to the gym again. He was like, the reason I was doing all that because I got so many more reps in than the competition, that by the time that you got up to go to, to the gym, like I'm so many workouts ahead of you. So it's just like, man, I think about the youth now, and it's just like, are you really putting in that grind? Are you really putting in that work to get what you want? Whether it's getting to the NFL, getting to the NBA, graduating college, starting a business, whatever it is, are you putting in the reps? Are you getting the knowledge? Are you doing what you have to do? Because it's solely up to you. And then, of course, like you said, man, understanding that the gift didn't come from you, man. It came from the man above. And it's like using that gift to help spread whatever it is that you do to other people, man. So I love that, man. I truly do.
Let me comment on that, bro.
Yeah.
Let me comment on that. The thing that I love about the mama is, right, first of all, the mentality, the hustle to come with it, but the reflection piece. Yeah, I think that's what most people miss. And again, that's what defines somebody who leans on the finesse for somebody who doesn't take the path of least resistance.
Yes.
They can sit down and they can reflect on it at the end of the day, right? How did I get better? How did I challenge myself? Things of that nature. When you finesse, you move on the fly. You ain't thinking about it. It's over and done with, right? So again, and I know that's something that we really relate on is just reflecting, taking that time, taking that quiet space to really reflect on what did I do today? How did I grow? Right? I messed up in this situation. How could I have done better? And I think again, that's what really differentiates somebody who's working in their greatness and really evolving to somebody who is content with where they are, but staying stagnant at the end of the day, even if they don't realize it. All right. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, now that's hot because, man, introspection is key. Like, it's
Mm,
one thing to go out and try to do different things, but if you don't take that moment to really like, man, did I get better today? Did I do the things that I said I was gonna do today? Like, did I, make that extra call? Did I stretch a little bit more today? And when I say stretch, I'm not meaning physically stretch, but did I stretch myself to get outside of my comfort zone to do the things that I said I would do to get where I want to go? And I think part of it is, obviously doing introspection within yourself, but having a group of people that you share your goals with, so that you tell, like, I talk about the guys all the time, man, because I think I got the coldest group of guys around me, to be honest, because they don't just hold me accountable to the things that, we want to do as a unit, but they hold me accountable to the things that I say that I want to do for myself, what I want to do for my family, the legacy that I want to leave for my family.
mm,
If they see me, man, not doing what I said I would do, hey, bro, last week when we were on the call, you said that you would, be
mm,
calling these dealerships to get these cars. Did you do that? Like, what's up with that? Like, we just had a call this morning, and I was just talking to Chuck about, like, man, like, I'm at a space in my life where I value my time, and he asked me, did you, submit the stuff that I asked you to submit? And I'm like, man, some things got in the way. He like, man, you got to get on that. And it's like, I think that having those people in your circle, but also, like we talked about, being able to come back into your shell, into your space, and say, man, I did say that I was going to do that. This is what I want. Let me go ahead and make sure that I do that so I can start setting my life up the way that I want to.
mm. One thing about that, man, and I tell my mentees, I tell my jits, I tell my mentors,
Yeah.
one person you can't finesse is yourself.
Speak on
You know your greatest assets. You know your worst liabilities. You know your pros. You know your cons. You know what you did when nobody else was looking. You know what
Yeah.
you did when everybody thought they saw something, right?
Yeah.
You cannot finesse yourself, right? And again, that's why listen to that inner voice. Listen to that conscious. Because when you really tap into that conscious will not let you fail yourself. Your conscious is created to help you grow and evolve. But oftentimes people stiff arm it, mush it, or keep it in a corner and try to suppress it. And that's when the
Yeah.
negative nuances become louder and overpower that.
But
Man, when I go ahead.
now I was just gonna say, I got Napoleon Hill, man. He speaks on your conscious being he said either being like having a conscious or having a conspirator, where it's like your mind could be either or, where it's like if you finesse so much, you will start to conspire against what you know that is right
Mm,
because you've done it so long. So that's why I keep coming back to these habits and this training that you have, because every time that you make the decision to finesse, you're building a habit, because we
mm,
know that your thoughts become your habits become your actions, and your actions lead to your results. So
mm,
when you think finesse, you're gonna act finesse. And when you act finesse enough, it becomes a habit, and then your results will continuously be finesse. Like, you may see some short-term success because of that finesse, but longevity is in authenticity. It's in doing the
mm,
grind, it's in doing the stuff that nobody wants to do. That's where the real success comes from, because you fall in love with the journey, not the destination. So, man, I
mm.
just when you were saying that, I instantly thought about Napoleon Hill, where he's like, "Nah, man, your mind could become a conspirator against you." Again, like you said, you can't lie to yourself, but your mind will kind of try to trick you. Like, yeah, yeah,
And you
okay,
already know that's my guy. No,
yeah,
Napoleon changed my life, man. But I agree with you 100%. And that's why I think a lot of things from a cultural standpoint, like the music, right, are
yeah,
very negative nuances for our youth because they haven't been able to identify self and hear out their self because
yeah,
those lyrics are louder than their internal thoughts. And that's where things become very problematic. And even in my early stages, I'm thinking finesse from a culture perspective. It like
yeah,
I was good at doing it, but you know what? That's why I became a salesman. Now I'm getting paid to do it. Now I'm aligning with more positive elements, right, that are going to bring about the desired result in the form of funds, but also using that the original finesse spirit to
mhm,
create and formulate rapport and using in a professional setting of status. So again, the finesse component collectively, I don't think is horrible. It's all about how you use it, right? And
Yeah.
and again, it's the mindset associated with it. So I actually have a tattoo that says something along the lines of the mind is its own place, and within itself can create a heaven of a hell or a hell of a heaven. So again, it's all about that perception and that perspective that goes hand in hand with it. So I mean, look at you and me, man. Look, we grew up on the finesse, but at the same time, now we're able to speak on it, and now we're able to help develop others and teach them not to be so dependent upon that mentality, but use that natural ability and sharpen that sword in whatever it is you desire to be to crush your goals and objectives, man. So it's coming full circle. So God used us.
For sure. For sure. For sure. But I think, again, like, we made a conscious choice to make an adjustment to do good with that finesse versus bad, because when you speak of being an excellent salesman or just a salesman in general, all you're doing is feeding to the motivation of other people. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily finessing. You just know exactly what to use. Like, you know how to motivate folks to do what you need them to do. So that's not really finessing, you know what I'm saying? But it's just motivating those folks.
Nah, you ain't lying. You ain't lying, man. But honestly, I think this was a very impactful conversation. I'm hoping a lot of young men, young women really can hear this out and really filter and apply it to themselves. Because again, we were in your shoes at one point in time, man, and at the same time, we have evolved. But you have to take on that natural evolution, right? You have to lean into the process. You have to remember that rainbow and not think about the gold that associated with it, but think about the rain and everything that transpired to create the process of it itself, man. So I think that's huge. And honestly, I think that within itself is our growth segment today. It's just right. Asking internally for you to reflect, man, how have you grown? When's the last time you finessed? When's the last time you sat down and reflect on your finesse and ask, why did you do that? Right? What would the other side of that look like, which came with genuine growth, right? Things of that nature. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's an excellent growth segment, as well as just thinking about not only like how have you grown, but what goals are you setting? Are you setting goals that you've already done or know how to accomplish? Are you setting goals where you think you can do it, but I don't think there's any real motivation in that? You spoke earlier to a point that you need to kind of have like a fantasy type goal that you desire, that's something that's so far ahead of you that it stretches you so much that it's like, even if you don't achieve that goal, there's a quote like, aim high, so even if you miss, you'll still aim for the moon, but even if you miss, you'll still reach the stars. You know what I mean? So it's just like thinking along those lines, excuse me, on what your goals are and how you look to achieve those goals and what your growth looks like.
I love it, man. I think you said it perfectly, man. We got to get in tune with that inner voice, right? That conscious, and actually listen to it. And even if it's on a small thing, like I mentioned, man, if I throw something in the trash and I miss, I got to pick it up, right? That's those small specific morals are going to carry me on to whatever I desire, right? So again, if it's a larger a project, we're working on the crib, I didn't do something, right? My conscience is telling me, yo, you got to get that done. You say you was going to do it, you're going to do it. And to your point, man, formulate a circle of different people with that same energy that are going to hold you accountable. Because oftentimes, man, when you're pointing to people, you might get depleted. But it's good to have other people to pour right back into you and fill you up, man. And that's what an inner circle is. And that's going to be a conversation for the future that we'll definitely dive into, man. But again, I hope y'all genuinely enjoyed this conversation today, man. Again, let's grow together. That's our goal and objective at the end of the day, man. So, James, what you got for him as we close on out, good brother?
Man, if you want to find the podcast, it's going to be on every streaming service that you get your podcast. It's going to be on YouTube as well. If you want to find me personally, I'm on Instagram at jturner TURNER 0121, and then you can follow the organization at A Greater Good Foundation on Instagram. We're on Twitter as well. Marcus, let the beautiful people know where they can find you at as well.
Oh yeah, so it's mastermind_Marcus. I told you I like Napoleon here, right? Mastermind_Marcus and Roots Mentoring, right? Roots Mentoring, and Roots is an acronym for Regiment of Overriding Statistics. So there is a period in between. So R period, O period, O period, T period, S Mentoring on Instagram, man. Check us out. And again, let's grow together. So let's tap in, let's grow, let's evolve. Appreciate y'all, family.
Yes, sir. We're going to leave you with this, man. If you're looking for something to believe in, why not yourself? Peace.